Hello everyone, present day Aries here, and I'm just here to throw in a little disclaimer that the video you're about to watch was recorded back in 2023. So please take baby Aries' words with a grain of salt. Hello everyone, Aries Rainy Days here, and welcome back to Rainy Day Creations. Today's video is yet another redraw of one of my earliest speed paints, back when I was just starting out in digital art. Not just that, but this Aries speed paint was the first video that I made with an actual drawing tablet that I had gotten for Christmas back in 2016. Of course, that tablet has long since died, but I still have it for, I guess, sentimental reasons? I don't know, I'm a tech nerd, what do you expect? Anyway, before I get any deeper into the proper commentary of my latest piece, I'd like to make a few announcements. Firstly, I have a Tumblr blog now. Currently it's very small and it's effectively just a place where I can dump any extra art pieces that I make in my free time outside of YouTube. I'll be posting there a lot more often, or at least whenever I have the time to, so feel free to check it out at judgmentdays101.tumblr.com. I'll be leaving a link in the description below. Secondly, I'm finally open to taking commissions. As of today's recording, August 1st, 2023, I currently have 4 slots available and I send out invoices via Stripe, which means I offer a very flexible method of payment to anyone that has a pulse. If you like the art that I create and are interested in a custom piece of your own, please check the description of this video. That's where I'll be keeping all of my relevant information regarding my terms of service, my pricing, and what exactly that I offer. Thirdly, because life's a bitch named Marissa, I haven't been able to keep up with my vocal exercises like I've wanted to in order to try and deepen my voice without having to go on PT. So I'm going to try and lower my voice through the magical power of editing. Here's to hoping I don't crash and burn in the process. Now, with all of that out of the way, feel free to sit back, relax, grab a few snacks, and join me for another rainy day. So, first things first, I'd like to get into the admittedly short bit of history behind the original piece. Back when I was a freshman in high school, I had just started to take art seriously, thanks to a handful of factors. The biggest factor being my best friend Ozzy, who is not only the main reason that I pushed myself to improve so fucking hard over the years, but is also the same person that introduced me to Undertale. Seriously, dude, if you're watching this, I don't think that I'd be as skilled as I currently am without you in my life. Thank you. Anyway, around this time, I was still in the transitional period between my My Little Pony and Five Nights at Freddy's phase, which you'll see reflected in a lot of my older art pieces that I'll inevitably remaster, regardless of the cringe level. Anyway, it wasn't until Christmas of 2016 that I had actually gotten my first drawing tablet, which I believe is the Wacom Intuos Pro? For such an expensive tablet, I admittedly flat out didn't know how to use it, and Windows sucked ass when it came to using the driver that I had to install just to get the darn thing to work. But again, that's besides the point. My point is that 14-year-old me was so freaking excited to use this tablet that as soon as I could get it up and running, I was hell-bent on drawing the glitch boy himself. I had been so used to just exclusively using a mouse that I have to admit, it was pretty jarring and awkward to use a drawing tablet for the first time. That being said, I obviously don't regret my decision because now I can make beautiful pieces like the one you're watching right now. Speaking of, what kind of amazing escapade was I gonna put the glitch lord in today? I mean, after all, the original piece is just him waving at the camera with the derpiest anatomy to date. So obviously present-day Aries had a plan set in stone for the remastered piece, right? The correct answer is no, by the way. Purely because I never have a plan set in stone for how all of my pieces turn out. Admittedly, I only had a vague idea in my head while I was working on this piece, because it'd been so long since I last drew Arrow that I decided to stick with the basics. This is why I stuck to his original Arrowtail design, rather than his current redesign that I've seen floating around, even though it's a lot cooler. This is also the first time that I've even attempted drawing any variation of the anti-void. I figured that it would fit a lot better than a battle screen like in my Underfell redraw, plus I didn't want to just go with a plain old gradient like I do in a lot of my art pieces, where I cheap out on a background. I think the trickiest part about making this background, besides drawing the individual souls tied up in strings, was the glitch effect in the background, because the brush that I use, which is the Pixelate shading brush, is very tricky to work with. In fact, I hate using it most of the time because it very rarely ever does what I want it to do. For any fellow Krita artists out there that have any potential tips, please let me know on how specifically this brush is meant to work, because I still haven't figured it out. Back on topic, like always, my coloring and shading techniques are very standard. I didn't feel the need to use any multiply layers this time when it came to shading error, since this palette is fairly uniform with virtually no gradients. Of course, this didn't stop me later down the line from experimenting with different layer types when it came to doing the glitch effect around his body, which, to be frank, I had no clue how in the world I was going to pull it off. As for the souls in the background, I decided to utilize various clipping layers between the line art and the coloring, so that they would have the smallest bit of dimension without having to worry about erasing any unnecessary bleeding, for lack of a better word, that I normally get when I shade something. As far as the glowy effect goes, I used an airbrush and actually colored over each of the souls with a lighter tint of their respective colors, in a similar way to what you would see in general Undertale fan art. I honestly think that this worked very well, a lot better than I was expecting, especially with all the souls tied up in different strings. I think my only regret is that maybe I should have made the strings a little bit thinner, or maybe drawn out the souls a bit more so that they would look properly tied up, but it is what it is. Especially since I know for the future I can actually add a bit more detail, if I so choose. Now, as fun as it was experimenting with a lighter background for once, a major drawback for it, at least for me personally, is the fact that it can be a lot more difficult to catch shading mistakes. As a tip for newer artists, I cannot stress enough how important it is to change your default canvas color to an off-white or a very light gray color, because it will make it a lot easier to spot shading mistakes. This is especially true regardless of the tone of your character's color palette. In fact, this is something that you can actually somewhat see as I shade error, because I will go outside of his line art and erase the bits of shading that had actually bled out from when I was using the blur tool. The last thing I'd like to touch on is the glitch effect itself, since it was objectively going to be the trickiest thing for me to pull off. Originally, I was going to add a copy of my original error group and merge it into a singular layer, and then yank out the bits that I wanted to glitch out, but this proved to be a lot trickier than I was hoping. Still sticking somewhat with my original idea, I had decided to make a divide layer so that I could actually see what exactly I was trying to delete. As soon as that was sorted out, I decided to experiment again with more layer types, utilizing an overlay layer, and I believe it is a darken layer, and what I did was that I cloned a little bit from each layer and then proceeded to erase bits, depending on the layer that I was on, to give a more chaotic looking glitch effect. And finally, as far as the text goes, I went with a basic text tool, used the font determination mono, and obviously just typed out error a handful of times. From there, I transformed the text/vector layer into a paint layer, cloned it, and then added a clipping group so that I could color the text black and provide a little bit of depth. Overall, I am extremely proud of how this actually came out, because like I stated earlier in the video, it's been literal years since I've drawn this glitch lord. With all of that being said, I think it's time for me to wrap things up for now. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to me ramble about this piece, and once again, see how much I've improved over the years. I apologize for not having much to say about this glitchy boy directly. Around the time that I made the original piece, Error was one of the few alternates that I knew about, so I kind of just clung on to him as my comfort character, at least before I found out about Under Fresh Sands. That all being said, I hope your pillows are pleasantly chilled tonight and that I get to see you all on another rainy day. Bye.